Oh my goodness, newbie here. I just recorded my first YouTube video for this channel about alpha gal syndrome. 30 minutes. And I thought it was recording and it wasn't. So guess what? I'm redoing it. Beep. All right. Anyway, so I just learned I have alpha gal syndrome. I just found out this week, and my name is Laura, and I decided to start a channel about my journey with alpha gal syndrome. Okay, so like I said, my name is Laura, and I go by Anam Cara Laura. I have another channel called Anam Cara Laura that talks about just a little bit of everyday things. Anam Cara means soul friend, and so I don't have a lot on it, but just things that come to mind, especially when it comes to walking in intimacy with God. But I'm also doing some videos on crypto because I've started a crypto journey. It seems like a lot of new things are happening to me right now. Anyway, so the latest is I got a test results back this week, just 2 days ago, showing that I have alpha gal syndrome, which interestingly enough seems kind of ironic because I started the carnivore diet about in March of 2024 after years of trying every other kind of diet to address just some minor like weight gain and just some other annoying issues that were going on that I thought were related to thyroid or hormones, and they probably were to some extent. But I also had odd symptoms like I couldn't have any gelatin capsules, and any protein powder made me really sick. And occasionally when I would eat food, my gums would burn and itch, and I just attributed those things to something that's just weird. Maybe it was something they put in the food, a seasoning, MSG, something like that. But I never ate a lot of red meat to begin with. That just wasn't something that usually I had trouble digesting. I had a lot of digestive issues. And that all came from, I've had some great experiences in my life, and a couple of those is just being able to go to other countries. And so when I was in high school back in 1987, I went to Europe for the summer for a missions trip, and we spent the summer camping around Europe, and very rustic, not hotels, camping. And we would do like little performances at the campgrounds or out on the streets, like singing, or we would mime or do plays or something like that. But while I was there, I picked up some parasites, some ringworm really bad in my feet. And, one of my feet still has, I'm in my 50s now. So that's 40 years ago, and I still have some issues in one of my feet from it, despite lots of options trying to figure things out. Then I spent a summer in Guatemala teaching when I was in college, and while I was there, I picked up some really nasty stuff. And because it was in this little village, this was not touristy things. This is like way out in the mountains. And anyway, I picked up some things. And then, I lived in Northwest Arkansas in college, and a little for several years after college, and those were my 20s, and it was just a lot of fun. And as part of that fun was I was big into paintball, and this was before paintball was, that they had actual places you go to play paintball. Those didn't exist when I was playing. No, you just went out in the woods, and we had some pretty serious equipment, and we created our own things. And oh my goodness, that was so much fun. But in that, we all got tick bites, many tick bites. So playing in the woods, going overseas and picking up parasites and bites of all things. And alpha gal syndrome apparently comes from a tick, but I have read that some people are saying that it could come from some other bites. So for me, I'm like, well, I've been bit by just about everything. So obviously it came from one of those. And I've had, like I said, symptoms for at least 15 years, but if not more. But I'd never heard of alpha-gal before a week and a half ago. And the reason that I found out about it was I started carnivore in March of 2024 because after all of these years of just having digestive issues and other issues, I was almost entirely plant-based, and it seemed like the more I got plant-based, the sicker I got. And so I just got really frustrated, and I've had loads of tests and pricks and all that other thing, and it just seemed like I was allergic to everything. And I just got to a point where I was almost in tears. In fact, I woke up one morning and I was just crying, and I just prayed, and I said, God, you're just gonna have to help me, because I don't know what else to do. In my mind, I was eating perfectly. I mean, to me, that's what was healthy. I was having green smoothies every single day. I was very heavy on vegetables and fruits, very little meat, and walking, and hardly any like wheat products, hardly anything processed. I mean, I had raw milk, grass. When I did eat meat, it was either grass-fed or wild. I mean, I had a local source for all of that. So my eggs were farm fresh. My milk was raw. I made my own yogurt. A lot of times I made my own butter. But if I had to buy butter, it was grass-fed or raw. And I was so sick in terms of how I felt. And I couldn't think. I had such a foggy brain. I was at that point where I just couldn't even stay awake during the day. And I came across carnivore, and I hadn't even heard of carnivore really, probably because it wasn't on my radar. Because to me, eating lots of meat was unhealthy. In fact, I would tell that to my son and my husband. So I kind of laugh at it now that I did that. But I was ready to try it. So I tried it, and within 24 hours, I felt amazing. But it was strange because it took me 6 to 8 weeks to lose 15 pounds. It was such a slow, most people, they're like losing weight with that big of a drastic change. And I didn't. And I haven't been able to lose weight in a very long time. And you have to understand, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm used to being 100 pounds until like 10 years ago, when all of a sudden I just ballooned. And in February, I was 158 pounds. And for a 5-foot person, that's pretty chunky. And I was so depressed. And I only lost 15 pounds. And then I never lost another pound. And then I gained a couple over Christmas, but that's okay. So a week and a half ago, and then some of the other things was when I started carnivore, my gums would burn and itch when I would eat sometimes. And recently it got worse. And so I had asked my dentist about it, if I had gingivitis or something like that. And so I decided, you know what? I am going to go to a butcher, because even though I'm trying to, I just thought maybe I really need to make sure it's grass-fed, grass-finished. And so I went to a local butcher who does grass-fed, grass-finished, and it's locally sourced. And I mean, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I needed to make sure this meat was as clean as possible, because I was sure there was just something that they were giving the cattle that was making me react. And I mentioned to him that my gums would burn when I would eat. And he said, have you heard of alpha-gal? And I'm like, nope. And so he just suggested I look into it. So I went home and looked it up, and I was shocked, because I was like, oh my gosh, I bet I have this, because for years I haven't been able to have gelatin capsules, which that was really big with alpha-gal, protein, collagen, none of that all of that would make me really sick. And I've never even heard of a meat allergy. I mean, really? So I ordered my own tests. go to traditional doctors. Just that's my personal, maybe I'll share more about that later, just my personal thing. I appreciate them for acute issues, emergencies, stuff like that. But for overall health and getting to the root of something, I don't use the traditional medical system. And so I was able to find a place where I could order they could order a blood test for me. So I went in the next business day, had my blood drawn, and 2 days ago got my results. And yes, I have got alpha-gal. And so for me, it was just a huge relief, huge. Just because now I don't feel nuts. When you tell people they want to give you supplements, oh, hey, try this, try that. And you're like, does that come in a capsule? Because if so, I can't take it. And they're like, no, you'll be fine. And you're not. And you cry. And they're like, there's nothing. You're just over. I had one lady basically, yeah. Anyway, you hear people say, people look at you like you're crazy, and they really do. Or some of them just actually say it. And, or I had one lady who pretty much kicked me out of her house, thought I was nuts because I'm like crying, or I'm like, this is not making sense. And they're like, yeah, it's not. So obviously there's something wrong with you. And I'm like, no kidding. So, and then they, they're not willing to be, work with me anymore. And you're just like, and there were times, and I haven't even told my husband these things, because there's times that I just laid on my couch and cried at night because, I'm like, why do I feel bad when I eat these things? Why do I react this way? What is it? And, but anyway, it took me a few years, but I finally got to the point where I'm like, there's something to this gel cabs, and I don't, even if people are like, that's not possible. And it just, made sense. And that's what brought so much relief. And then January of last year, even before I started Carnivore, I had a friend help me do some biometric testing, and they tried to find alternatives for supplements for me that weren't in gel caps. And even then, I just wasn't responding well to it, and I stopped taking them after a few weeks. And that's what led me to the carnivore diet, because I just got to the end of myself. And even though I felt so good, I was having these symptoms, the burning of the gums. And then I don't know if you can see, this is the best my face has looked in 9 months. I figured it out before I got on here. I was like, how long has it been? It was back in May is when I started breaking out. I never broke out even as a teenager, but I got really severe acne after I started Carnivore. And that didn't make sense, because other people are like, oh, my acne cleared up when I got on Carnivore. Oh, I lost all this weight. And here I am going, I get acne. I'm not losing weight. I lost weight right, the first couple weeks, and then I didn't. Nothing I did I could lose, not even an ounce. And I'm just like, what's going on? I asked my dentist if there was something wrong with my gums. So just to get this result back saying you have alpha-gal, and reading what alpha-gal is like, yes, I'm not crazy. So anyway, so I'm starting this channel to talk about my journey and to share